The cemetery was quiet, not peaceful, expectant, the kind of silence that feels heavy, as if the ground itself is holding its breath. Gravel crunched softly under polished shoes as the millionaire couple walked between the gravestones. They didn't speak. They never did. Talking made room for memory, and memory was dangerous. The man adjusted his coat, even though it didn't need adjusting. He always did that when he felt watched. His wife walked half a step behind him, eyes forward, posture flawless. Anyone watching would see a respectful couple paying tribute. No one would guess this was routine. Several rows ahead, behind an old stone cross, the woman stood still. She had been there for nearly 20 minutes, not hiding, waiting. Her legs ached, but she didn't shift her weight. She knew better. If she moved too much, she might lose control. And control was everything now. Her clothes were torn and layered without order, not for warmth, for survival. Her fingers were numb, but her chest burned. Every breath felt louder than it should have. She pressed her tongue against the roof of her mouth, grounding herself. Not yet, she told herself. Wait. She had imagined this moment more times than she could count. In winter shelters, on cold sidewalks, during nights when hunger kept her awake. Sometimes she screamed in her imagination. Sometimes she whispered. Sometimes she walked away before it happened. But this time was different. This time, they were really here. The couple stopped at the grave. Her grave. The stone was clean, maintained. That detail hurt more than neglect would have. They had cared enough to preserve the lie. The man knelt slightly and placed the bouquet of white flowers at the base of the stone. White daisies. Always white daisies. Her stomach twisted. She remembered choosing those flowers once, years ago, back when choosing still felt safe. The wife exhaled slowly. "We don't have much time," she said. Her voice was steady, practiced. The man nodded. "No one followed us," he replied. Not a question, a confirmation. Behind the stone cross, the woman felt something shift inside her. Not anger, not fear, clarity. The kind that arrives when you've already lost everything. Her hands trembled. She curled them into fists, nails digging into her palms. Pain helped. It reminded her she was still here, still real. She looked at the carved name on the stone. Her name, or the version of it they allowed to exist. The date beneath it felt unreal, too final, too neat. She had breathed through that date, frozen through it, starved through it. The couple stood silently for a moment, not mourning, confirming that the story was still intact, that the world still believed what they needed it to believe. That was when she stepped out from behind the cross. One step, slow, deliberate. The sound of her shoe against the gravel was soft, but it landed. The wife sensed something first. She stiffened, turned slightly. The man followed her gaze. "I tease me." The words tore out of her chest before she could soften them. "I'm alive." The scream didn't sound desperate. It sounded final. It echoed across the cemetery, bouncing off stone and marble. Birds burst from the trees. A groundskeeper froze mid-step. The man's hand loosened around the flowers. Time did something strange. It stretched. The couple turned slowly, as if moving too fast might confirm what they were seeing. She stood fully visible now, thin, worn, breathing hard, but upright, and looking directly at them. "That's not possible," the man whispered. He didn't mean it logically. He meant it spiritually. And the wife shook her head. "No," she said quickly. "No, that's not her." The woman took another step forward. Her voice dropped. "You buried me," she said, "and then you learned how to sleep." The bouquet fell. White petals scattered across the gravel, across the grave, across the lie. People nearby turned. Whispers rippled. Phones slowly lifted, uncertain at first, then steadier. The woman felt the weight of eyes on her. She didn't look away. She had been invisible long enough. "You're dead," the man said louder, as if volume could restore order. The woman tilted her head slightly. "That's what you told everyone," she replied. "It worked. Until today." Her chest tightened. Memories threatened to rush in. She pushed them down. Not yet. She looked at the stone again, then back at them. "I came here every year," she said, "just to make sure you still believed it." The wife's hand flew to her chest. Her breathing turned shallow. "Please," she whispered, "you don't understand." The woman finally looked directly at her. "I understand perfectly," she said. "You chose silence. I lived with it." The air felt electric now. This was no longer a misunderstanding. It was a collision. The man stepped forward, lowered his voice. "Do you know what you're doing?" he hissed. "You're destroying lives." The woman didn't move. "You destroyed mine first," she said quietly. She reached into her coat, slowly, carefully. Several people gasped. She pulled out a folded photograph, old, worn. She held it up. It showed her younger, clean, smiling, standing between them, alive. The wife touched her necklace instinctively. Her hands shook. "You kept it," the woman said softly. "I gave it to you because I trusted you." The wife broke. The man looked around. Too many eyes, too much silence. "Too late. I'm not here for money," the woman said. "And I'm not here for revenge." She placed the photograph gently on the grave. "I'm here because I never died, and I'm done letting you pretend I did." The cemetery was silent again, but this time, the silence belonged to the truth. Earlier that morning, the cemetery looked ordinary. That was what made it dangerous. Ordinary places are where lies survive the longest. The millionaire couple arrived just after sunrise. No driver, no assistants, no audience. They never came late. Routine was part of the protection. The man checked his watch out of habit, not because he was late, because control calmed him. His wife walked beside him, posture perfect, eyes forward. She had learned long ago that hesitation invited questions, and questions were risks. They walked directly toward the grave. No wandering, no searching. They knew exactly where it was. They always did. The stone was simple. Too simple for someone who had supposedly meant something. No photograph, no message, just a name. And a date that closed the story neatly. The man crouched slightly and placed the white daisies at the base of the stone. He straightened them. Small gestures matter when you're convincing yourself. "We don't need to stay long," he said quietly. His wife nodded. "They never ask," she replied. "No one ever has." She scanned the area anyway. Old habits don't disappear just because the threat feels distant. Standing there, the man felt something stir that he didn't like. A memory. He pushed it down immediately. Memory had almost ruined everything once. Years earlier, the woman had come to him with questions. Not accusations, questions. She had found documents that didn't match. Payments routed quietly, decisions signed without explanation. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't threaten. She just refused to stop asking. At first, he believed it could be managed. People like him always believe that. But then she spoke to his wife. And that changed everything. She knows too much, his wife had said that night, not angry, not afraid, certain. She won't let this go. The man remembered the silence that followed, the long pause where they both understood what was being decided. Not allowed, never allowed. The official story came together quickly. An accident, a disappearance. Tragic, but uncomplicated. The kind of story people accept because it doesn't demand involvement. Paperwork was adjusted. Calls were redirected. Concerns were absorbed into bureaucracy. No one fought hard enough to matter. Back at the grave, the man exhaled slowly. "It's done," he said. His wife replied, without looking at him. "It stays done as long as we keep it that way." She knelt and brushed dirt from the stone. That detail mattered to her. Maintenance was responsibility. They didn't mourn. They audited. Each year they came to confirm the same thing. The world still believed what they needed it to believe. Behind an old oak tree, the woman stood motionless. She had arrived early. She always did. She watched the ritual with an attention sharpened by years of invisibility. The way he avoided the stone at first. The way her hand lingered just a second too long. Guilt leaves fingerprints. Her legs ached, but she didn't move. She knew that if she shifted, she might lose the clarity she'd waited so long for. She had learnt patience the hard way. The man straightened up. "We should go," he said. Then, almost as an afterthought, she wouldn't have survived anyway. The wife stiffened. "Don't," she said sharply. He fell silent, because even now, the truth scared him. The woman behind the tree felt something tighten in her chest. Not anger. Recognition. That sentence had followed her for years. Whispered in offices. Implied in glances. She had survived in spite of it. The couple turned to leave. The ritual complete. The lie confirmed. They believed the moment had passed. That was when the woman stepped forward. Not out of impulse. Out of decision. The world decided she was dead quietly. There were no sirens. No headlines. No dramatic farewell. Just a decision made in rooms she wasn't invited into. She woke up in a hospital bed under a harsh white light. The ceiling looked unfamiliar. Too clean. Too empty. Her head throbbed, and every breath felt like it belonged to someone else. A nurse noticed her eyes open. "Can you tell me your name?" the nurse asked gently. The question should have been simple. It wasn't. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. Not because she didn't know her name, but because her body reacted before her memory could reach it. Her throat tightened. Her heart raced. Silence felt safer. Days passed in fragments. She learned she had been found unconscious. That no one came looking. That no one asked questions loudly enough to matter. Her chart was thin, uncomfortably thin. An unidentified woman. That was how she was introduced to her second life. She waited for someone. Anyone. A husband. A friend. A stranger who knew her face. No one came. The nurses stopped asking. They started speaking around her instead of to her. When she was discharged, it felt abrupt. A plastic bag with donated clothes. A pamphlet folded too many times. A polite smile. "Good luck," someone said. She stood outside the hospital doors, blinking in the daylight, alive, but unclaimed. The city didn't reject her. That would have required noticing her. It simply moved on. Cars passed. People brushed by. No one asked why a woman stood frozen on the sidewalk holding everything she owned in one bag. The first night on the street didn't feel real. She stayed awake until dawn, afraid that sleep would erase her again. Cold crept in slowly. Hunger arrived faster. She learned quickly which benches were patrolled, which doorways were safer, which kindness had conditions. Winter taught her its own language, how to curl inward, how to breathe shallowly, how to stay still enough not to attract attention. She counted days by weather instead of calendars. Time blurred. Sometimes she spoke her name quietly to herself, just to hear it, just to make sure it still existed somewhere. Other times she avoided it. Names attract memory. Memory hurts. She tried to get help once, then again. A social worker listened with polite focus, nodded at the right moments, then explained gently that trauma often creates false memories. A police officer glanced at her worn clothes and sighed. "Do you have any proof?" he asked. She didn't. She had survived, not documented. She stopped trying to explain. Survival required silence. Years passed. Not loudly, quietly. Her reflection changed faster than her mind. Her body adapted. Her expectations shrank. She learned how to disappear without dying, but memory didn't fade. It sharpened. She remembered the office, the way the air felt when she realized the conversation was over before it began. She remembered the wife's silence. Not cruel. Worse, calculated. At night she followed the news on library computers. She saw their names, awards, charity galas. Smiling photographs. She recognized the necklace. She recognized the confidence. She recognized the life built on her absence. Anger didn't consume her. It anchored her. As long as they existed in public, she existed too. She kept one thing hidden inside her coat, an old photograph. Folded so many times, the edges felt like cloth. It showed her before everything ended, clean, smiling, standing between them, alive. Every year, on the same date, she returned to the cemetery. She didn't announce herself. She didn't confront them. She stood at a distance, watched them perform grief, watched them confirm the lie still held. It became a ritual, not for closure, for endurance. Each year she left feeling smaller, but also surer. If the lie still needed maintenance, it wasn't as strong as they believed. Then came this year. The morning felt different. Not emotional, clear. She didn't feel fear. She felt ready. She arrived early, stood behind the oak tree, watched them approach, listened to their casual words, words spoken by people who believed silence had won. She touched the photograph inside her coat, felt its familiar shape, grounded herself. She wasn't there to beg. She wasn't there to accuse. She was there to exist. When they turned to leave, she stepped forward, not rushing, not shaking. Timing matters when truth finally speaks. And then she screamed. The cemetery no longer felt like a place of mourning. It felt like a courtroom without walls. People had stopped walking, stopped whispering, stopped pretending this was none of their business. Because the moment the scream echoed, it became everyone's. The millionaire man felt it first. The shift. The loss of control that doesn't announce itself, but settles quietly in your chest. He straightened his shoulders instinctively. Authority was muscle memory. "This is harassment," he said, raising his voice just enough to carry. "This woman is disturbed." The word hung in the air. Disturbed. It had worked before. It didn't work now. The woman didn't respond immediately. She let the silence stretch, let people look at her. Really look, her clothes, her face, her shaking hands that never dropped the photograph. "You hear that?" she said calmly, turning slightly toward the crowd. That's what they called me when I wouldn't stay quiet. A murmur spread, not loud, but sharp. The wife stepped forward, panic tightening her posture. This is a private matter, she said quickly. Please respect our grief. The woman looked at her. For years you asked me for the same thing, she replied. Privacy, silence, disappearance. The wife swallowed hard. How do you know? I was here. The woman interrupted softly. Every year, someone in the crowd spoke up. A man, middle-aged, unremarkable, which made him dangerous. If she's lying, he said, why are you so afraid? The question landed harder than any accusation. The millionaire man turned sharply. You don't understand the situation, he snapped. The woman nodded slowly. He never likes questions, she said. That's why I had to disappear. Phones were fully raised now. No one was hiding. The man took a step closer to her, lowered his voice. You have no idea what you're doing, he hissed. You're destroying lives. The woman didn't move. She met his eyes. You destroyed mine first, she said. And you did it quietly. She turned toward the grave, touched the stone with her fingertips. Do you know how long it takes, she continued, for the world to believe you're dead? Her voice remained steady. About 5 minutes. The wife's breathing grew shallow. She looked around wildly. Too many people, too much attention. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She reached for her husband's arm. He pulled away, feared as that. A groundskeeper approached slowly, not to intervene, to listen. Then another visitor stepped closer, then another. The circle tightened. No one touched anyone. They didn't need to. The woman reached into her coat again, not hurried, deliberate. She pulled out a folded hospital discharge paper, yellowed, fragile. This is dated 3 days after my supposed death, she said, holding it up. You signed papers that same week. The man's face drained of color. That's impossible, he said automatically. But the word had lost its power. The wife whispered, stop. Not to the woman, to him. Sirens approached in the distance, not loud, not rushed, but unmistakable. The sound changed everything. 2 police officers entered the cemetery calmly. They didn't run, they didn't push, they observed. Is there a problem here? One asked. The crowd parted instinctively. The woman stepped forward. Yes, she said. I was declared dead without my consent. The officer looked at her, then at the grave, then at the couple. Can you explain that? He asked them. The man opened his mouth, closed it, reopened it. Words failed him for the first time in years. The wife broke. I didn't think she'd survive, she whispered. The sentence escaped before she could stop it. Silence crashed down, hard, unforgiving. The officer looked up sharply. I'm going to need you to repeat that, he said. The wife covered her mouth. Tears spilled. The man stepped back. Too fast, too obvious. The woman closed her eyes briefly. Not in triumph, in release. Then she opened them. You thought wrong, she said quietly. The officers separated them. Not roughly, but definitively. Please remain here, one said. That sentence had never been spoken to them before. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't shout. They watched. Because watching was enough. The cemetery didn't empty after the police arrived. It changed. People didn't speak loudly. They didn't move much. They watched. And being watched was something the couple had never prepared for. The officers asked questions slowly, not accusatory, methodical, names, dates, relationships. Each question removed another layer of protection. The millionaire man tried to regain control. "This is a misunderstanding," he said carefully. "I have legal representation." One officer nodded. "You're free to contact them," he replied, "after we finish here." That sentence landed hard. After. The woman sat on a low stone bench nearby. Someone handed her a blanket. She accepted it without looking up. Not because she was weak, because she was tired. Tired in a way adrenaline can't touch. Phones captured everything. Not the scream, the aftermath, the hesitation, the separation, the silence where confidence used to be. By the time the officers escorted the couple away from the grave, the video was already spreading. Online, people paused and rewound. Screenshots appeared, side-by-side comparisons, the photograph, the necklace, the dates. What had once required power to hide now required power to stop. And no one had that much. By evening, statements were released, carefully worded, empty. By morning, they were deleted. Sponsors withdrew support. Boards announced temporary suspensions. Friends stopped answering calls. Power doesn't collapse loudly, it collapses alone. Interrogations followed. Not dramatic, clinical. The man answered with precision. He always had. But precision doesn't erase patterns. Paper trails resurfaced. Hospital administrators admitted pressure. Payments were traced. Silence was mapped. Across the hall, the wife sat staring at the table. Her hands shook. She stopped crying hours ago. There was nothing left to cry for. "They told me she wouldn't survive," she said quietly. "So I convinced myself she didn't." The officer didn't interrupt. He wrote it down. Meanwhile, the woman was taken somewhere safe. Not hidden, protected. She was asked what she wanted next. The question surprised her. She had survived so long without being asked anything. "I want my records restored," she said slowly. "I want my name back." The officer nodded. "That can be done." For the first time in years, the future answered her. The next day, the house was searched. Neighbors watched from behind curtains. No one waved. No one defended them. Reputation leaves faster than wealth. The woman stood in front of a mirror later that evening. Clean clothes, clean hands, the same eyes. She touched her face gently. Still here, still real. When the noise faded, something unexpected remained. Quiet. Not the kind that hides truth, the kind that allows it. The paperwork took weeks. Forms passed through offices that once ignored her. Now people looked carefully, listened, double-checked. When the document finally arrived, she held it in both hands. Her name, printed clearly. No corrections, no footnotes, just facts. She didn't celebrate. She sat quietly, letting the weight of existence settle. Being erased hurts in ways survival can't explain. Being restored is slower. She moved into a small apartment. Nothing special, a door that locked, a window that opened. At night she still woke suddenly, expecting footsteps, expecting to be told to leave. But morning came anyway. The court proceedings were quiet. No spectacle, no redemption arcs, just accountability. The man was sentenced, the wife testified, not to be forgiven, but because continuing to lie felt heavier than the truth. Their names disappeared from places that once applauded them. Not erased, recontextualized. Months later, the woman returned to the cemetery, alone, no cameras, no police tape. She stood where she had screamed. The grave was still there, different now, marked, questioned. She placed a single flower on the stone. Not for mourning, for closure. "This was never my end," she said softly. And she meant it. She didn't become a symbol. She didn't give speeches. She helped quietly. Sat with people others ignored. Listened longer than she spoke. Because she understood something power never does. Being seen is not about attention. It's about truth. The world once believed she was dead, because powerful people needed her to be. But the truth doesn't disappear just because it's inconvenient. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it survives quietly. And sometimes it stands in a cemetery and says the one sentence that changes everything: I'm alive.